Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Still That Girl series. I'm your host, Jory Martin. Today on this episode, we have with us a young lady who will share her experience of being a divorcee and a single mother. Help me welcome Utisha.
Hi,
So how are you today?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm wonderful. So before we jump into the interview, we're going to start with an icebreaker. So you're going to pick a question from the jar, hand it to me, and I'm going to read it to you.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, so the question asks, who inspires you to be a better person?
Wow, there's so many persons. My biological family, my friends. The thing is, because of the circle that I'm in, they all inspire me to become a better person.
Okay, great. So Tishi, which is also a name that you go by, how was your childhood growing up? What did you always grow up in church? Just give us a little bit of background.
Okay, so I did grow up in church, not necessarily in a Christian home, but we were sent to church. In terms of Christianity, I made a decision very young, at about 9, 10, that is what I wanted because of what I saw around me. So I did grow up in church, yeah.
So at the age of 10, you committed your life to Christ, and it's been the same ever since?
It's been the same. You know, when you're young, you make a decision, you don't fully understand it, but as the years went by, when I was about 13, 14, I got baptized. I transitioned from one church to the next. That is when I began to understand the whole Christianity thing, and I decided I wanted to go full into it, so I got baptized, and since then, this is me.
Okay, so what kind of activities are you involved in at church?
I was a part of the praise team. I started to lead praise and worship very young. I always enjoyed dancing, so I was involved in that, the youth ministry, you name it. I was involved in everything.
Okay, so in your own words, what is dating to you?
I think dating is just getting to know somebody, assessing that individual to see if, hey, do I really want to spend the rest of my life with this person? So that's basically what dating is to me.
And would you say in your young stages, going through church, and would you say that you were dating?
No, actually, it's weird because I think I started dating at about age 19. Actually, when I was a child, I didn't want any relationship.
Okay.
You know, seeing the broken relationships growing up, I just decided all I wanted to do was help children and just be involved in church. I never wanted a relationship.
So your intention was you never had that need to be married? Then?
No.
No, okay. So at what age would you say that you officially started dating?
Well, I began dating just about 19, just a little before 19. I did see people that I began to like. Not that I really wanted to get into a relationship, but, you know, as a human body, it's natural for us to see persons that we like. I can actually remember that I had a 2 weeks dating relationship where it was a letter relationship. And at that point, I decided I really didn't want to have a relationship. So it was a back and forth. I wrote a letter to him. My cousin brought back the letter to me, and vice versa. And after 2 weeks, I just said, I don't want to be a part of this. But I think officially, it's about 18, just a little before 19.
Okay, so at what age would you say that you had your first real boyfriend?
I only dated one person, really.
Okay, so at what age did you meet this person?
We met, the thing is, we were going to the same church since I was about 13. Not that I liked him at that point, but I think once I was probably 18, that is when we started to get close. He helped me with CXC and we started to get close. And that is when it was the same, 18, 19. Yeah?
Okay, so did it officially start as a friendship and then it eventually grew into something more?
Yes,
okay.
Friendship, yeah.
So at what age or what stage did you guys say, hey, we like each other, you want to take a step further and pursue marriage?
I think it was immediately.
Immediately.
Again, because we grew up in the same church, we knew each other's value system. And so after, just knowing each other, we just decided, okay, this is what we wanted to do.
Okay. So as a Christian couple, did you guys date with purpose, and how hard or easy was this?
I don't think we did. We didn't understand. I think we were young, even though we were 19 and 20 and persons do get married that age. We didn't think about all of that. We just wanted to get married because it was the right thing to do. Not that I had the urge or, to me, I was able to control myself. But I can't, thinking back, I can't say that we really married with purpose. We just were dating and it was the right thing to do as Christians. So I can't say that, okay, this is the purpose. It's just the right thing to do. Yeah.
So did you guys ever had that talk about boundaries and stuff like that in the beginning?
No, it was just understood.
Okay.
And I think that is one of the things that we got wrong and our society gets wrong and our church gets wrong because we don't explain to young people that this is what it's supposed to be. We are supposed to set boundaries. To me, adults think that we know it. We are supposed to know it because especially if you grew up in a Christian home, you're supposed to know it, and that is not the truth. We have to be able to train our young people to understand there should be boundaries. You should date with purpose in order for us to avoid divorce.
Yeah. So that leads me into my next question. How many years were you married before you officially divorced?
We were married for about 13 years, but the separation came into the 7th year of the marriage.
Okay. And was there ever a time where you felt like this marriage is definitely from God, like he's my Prince Charming, he's everything I wanted? Did you ever go through a period where the marriage was really, really good?
The thing is, knowing you, Tisha, and being a person that didn't want to get married, from inception I knew, even today, I still believe that he was from God, or he is still from God, even though he's not there. Not that I'll go back there, but I still believe he's from God. Although I was not dating with purpose, for some reason, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that this is what God wanted. Especially, both of us had the same passion. We had the same drive. So it was, I guess because we were young, we didn't understand a lot of stuff. But I would never doubt that this relationship was definitely from God.
Okay. So with all of that, knowing that you guys complemented each other, you were like as people say nowadays, a power couple. What happened? What big significant event happened that changed the outcome of everything?
I think these relationships often, there are two main things that usually interrupts relationships like these. Infidelity and one partner, or maybe even both partners, not willing to say that I'm wrong. And I think one of the things that happened was that I'm trying not to blame because I take a lot of the blame as well. when you look back over everything, you can say, okay, I did this wrong and I should have done this better. I should have made a different decision. But the main thing was infidelity and the other partner not willing to reconcile, even though it was on his path, right? So that is the main event that transpired.
Okay, so even throughout all this, you said that you guys were married legally for 13 years.
Right.
Did your love for your spouse ever change during that time? Did feelings change?
Okay, when it happened first, because it was more than once, when it happened first, the love just spiked, because at that point I recognized there must have been something wrong that I was doing. And so I changed the way I was doing things. But after it continued, I began to realize it's not necessarily my fault why it's been happening, because I've always been forgiven. I was always forgiven. Even at the end of it, I chose to the end, even though the final leg of it, it was really, really heart-wrenching. I was still on the side of saying, God is going to change this.
Yeah.
I prayed, I fasted, and I was still saying that I was going to do whatever it took to save this marriage. So my love did spike, but then, when I recognized that he just didn't want this, unfortunately, I began to develop this level of hatred. Because here it is, coming into a marriage, being an individual who kept herself for marriage, and then here it is that you're going through this. Eventually, the enemy is saying, just hate this person. And the love just fell. We are friends now, but I am not saying that I would go back there, because the level of trust, definitely that was broken. And but I still love him as an individual. As a Christian, it is my responsibility. I genuinely love him as a Christian. So I can see him and not say, so.
So did you guys ever seek out counsel, maybe elders in the church, anything like that?
We did, not like we should, because unfortunately I am very reserved.
Okay.
And I was a person that nobody knew what I was going through. Not just in marriage, but just generally. I didn't know how to speak to persons. Not that I didn't have that environment, because most persons around me are talkative persons. I don't know how I ended up in, being this person, but I was always an introvert. And so I just cried it out. I just prayed it out. I had the support. I can tell you, but
It was just you.
It was just me.
So I know with that too, as Christians, Christians, we grew up in church and we know that people are against divorce. So did you ever feel like no matter what, you were willing to work on the marriage because there was no way you were going to have a divorce? Did you feel that way?
I felt that way, and even today, not that I don't support divorce, but because I'm not going to tell somebody to stay in a marriage where they're getting abused, where infidelity is just the norm of the day, where it is just a situation where they just can't handle. But I always believe that we should be able to be mature enough to work it out. But there is a stigma attached to divorce. Fortunately for you, Tisha, and I believe a lot of other persons, as I said earlier, I am surrounded by a community. I'm surrounded by family and friends who have never made me felt as if I am less than because I'm divorced. Actually, I have persons, majority of the persons are looking for a husband for me. So I have never felt, it's just within me, because I grew up knowing that there's only certain reasons why you can remarry. And even, maybe that's why I'm still single after 9 years. I don't know, I just can't open up as yet. I believe eventually,
In time.
and I think I can safely say that I'm available. So those of you who are watching,
Yes, you're
I'm
right.
available. So hopefully, but there are some boundaries that I will definitely, so mistakes I would have made 30 and so many years ago, I would not make them now. And I have more persons around me who would have gone through the same thing, who would have been able to give me advice. And so now, if I had to do it again, it would be very different. I would not be an introvert.
That is so good. So one important question, do you think it's very important for people to be friends with their spouse? I know you're in a relationship, but you're not necessarily friends. Do you think that's a very important aspect of marriage, to be friends with your spouse?
I believe it is, because once you're friends with your spouse, there is nothing, there's hardly ever anything that they would keep from you. I don't think my husband really knew how I felt about a lot of things. And it's not that I'm going to say that we weren't friends, but we weren't as close from the start. Again, because I was raised sort of sheltered. He was not brawling, but they were exposed, right? And so he was able to speak to persons and be opened. Me now, I would just, even at home, yes, I would do the wife thing. I would cook, I would clean, but speaking wasn't always one of my, you're actually taking me out of my comfort zone, because I don't really like speaking a lot. But it's important that you are friends, because as I said, communication will be much better.
Yes.
Communication, and that is one of the key factors in a relationship, communication. And I think that's one of the things that we lacked. And it was on my part. As I said, if I could have rewind it, I would have done a lot of things differently. But I was just not mature enough. I did not understand enough. And I was not the person to come and ask questions and say, I need help. Yeah. I would need help, and I don't say I need help. It has changed now. The whole divorce has transformed my life. So now I am a more open person. I ask questions. If I can't, I say I can't. And I think that is very important. A lot of us sit down and we suffer in silence, but we don't ask questions. We don't say, I need help to get through this. And there were times where, just like any other marriage, we had issues, and I did not ask for help. And he he wouldn't go and tell somebody, okay, I'm having this issue. Not because he didn't want to, but because he knew I was very secretive. So he would not want to disrespect me. And I think if I was more open, and I'm not blaming my lineage, I'm not blaming my family members. It was just me, because I had the opportunity to speak out. I was just not that kind of person, unfortunately.
What do you think the fear was? Do you think fear was attached to you not speaking out, of being judged or maybe disappointing somebody? What do you think was the root cause?
It was definitely fear. And as I said, it's not from my family. I don't know where it came from. I really don't know where it came from, because growing up, I mean, everybody, we had a say. At home, I was very exposed at school in terms of, I used to love dance. Well, I still love dancing, but I danced a lot in functions at school. And I was always called upon to take part in stuff. But I think when I got to secondary school, that is where it all eclipsed. I don't know. I can't put an event. I was actually thinking about it 2 weeks ago. What is it that caused me to develop this fear? And I really don't know. I honestly don't know.
Okay, so we can definitely say that although we don't advocate for divorce, it's not something that we want, you would definitely see some positives out of it. So what is one major way that you would say that your life has changed since the divorce?
Okay, well, as I said earlier, the introvert Tishi that everybody knows, is slowly fading away. So now I am able to express myself. If I have a problem, I am now able to speak to persons. So that's for me. I am now able to help other persons, because I always believe that our situations are not always for us. It's to help other persons. And both my divorce and even being a single parent, I am now able to help other persons to better at who they are and not think that life is not my fault and so I should give up. Okay, so there has been some positives.
Okay, and you mentioned that you're a single parent. So, how did you had your child while you were still married, of course, or going through the divorce? Was it?
Okay, we were still married. That was when it turned upside down.
Okay.
I don't think the pregnancy is what caused it, but I found out I was pregnant during all of this.
Okay.
So that was crushing for me. It was very, very, very hard. Again, I go back to the fact that this young lady who just wanted to help everybody else with their children and just live happy as a Christian, and then not wanting marriage, ended up getting married, and then ending up in this situation. And now, here I am, being pregnant and going through. Well, the divorce didn't come until like about 2-3 years after.
Okay.
But the separation was like 3 months after I found out I was pregnant.
Okay.
So that was very hard. I bawled. I prayed. I think at that point is when I began to open up. I began to tell persons, okay, this is what I was going through. And just to go back a little bit, it's not that we had a lot of problems. So, I mean, with the infidelity, I was willing to brush that off. So I can't pinpoint something else I would say, okay then, he was a horrible person, I was a horrible person. I think we could have worked it out, but, you know, we think different. And so at one point I just had to give up. But it was extremely challenging. And again, I'm a person who, I used to send home people's children at the end of the day. Now you have a child who of your own, you can't send home that child. You have to ensure that this child is well taken care of. But again, I found myself within a community, and God placed me within a family and surrounded me by friends who were super supportive. That is one of the things that I want to encourage persons. Ensure that your circle of people who will support you in the right, not just support you in persons who would tell you you're wrong. You are wrong. Because my past would have said many times, Tishi, you're wrong. And it's hard. It's hard to be corrected. But I had to stop for a while and recognize that there were some things I did wrong. But the support from family, friends, my church community was just overwhelming, to the point where I've never had somebody say, "You gal tap cry, get over it." I've never heard somebody say, just get over it. They understood that this must be painful. So.
And that was very much needed too. So even after he found out about the pregnancy, it didn't change anything?
No.
Okay.
No.
What do you think are some guidelines for a successful marriage, looking back on your marriage now or just in general? What do you think are some guidelines?
Okay, I'll just give a few because I think persons would be able to say different things. One of the things is communication. That's something that we've been hearing. Be honest, be open. Be open. Things happen. Let's say you are falling out of love, if that's the right term to use, with your spouse. Say something. Don't just allow the situation to fester and the sore just get worse, and then eventually persons are heartbroken. Communicate. If you find, a lot of times, I'm not going to say men only, women as well, we are consumed by a situation and we don't find somebody else who we know would have gone through. I believe our experiences are to help other people. And so if you know somebody with a similar experience, go to that person and say, throw your hands up in the air. Too many of us are so proud that we're not saying, we're too proud to say, I need help. So let us seek help when we're going through a situation. communicate with each other, add some spice. I was very boring. Because I'm going to be real, I was very boring because again, I'm coming into a marriage to somebody with somebody who is experienced, and poor little me,
You saved yourself. You're a
right?
virgin.
So I didn't know anything about those things. So I'm sure I was worried, you know? I'm just being real, okay?
I love it. I love it.
So get some excitement. Look to other couples who are able to help you. Add some spice to the relationship. As I said, be honest and open. I'm not sure what else I can add, but I'm sure there are many other things, you know, that you can. But for me, communication was lacking, spice was lacking, and openness and asking other persons, you know, to help.
So would you say that love in marriage is very important? I know you mentioned that you guys grew up in church together, you liked each other, and that was just kind of, marriage was just like something that was expected. But do you think that you have to really sit and say, hey, I love this person, or is that something that you think people can grow? You can grow in marriage, grow to love each other, or is it important at the beginning?
It is important at the beginning, but I believe that as the marriage goes along, that it should grow. But love is very important. You know, I hear a lot of persons saying love is not important. And the reality is there's some persons who are married that don't love each other. They just have a common understanding. But as Christians, I believe, just like Christ loved the church, we should be able to love each other. And that should be the starting point for any marriage. And I believe, if I may add, that if there is no love, then we're going to have many more divorces.
So throughout the years of your husband's infidelity and all that, did you ever feel the need to get even, or did you ever feel so empty that you wanted to seek love maybe from somebody else?
I am so happy you asked me that question, because that's a question I get over and over and over again. And fortunately for me, no, I never believe in retaliating. Actually, I usually tell children, when somebody hits you, don't hit them back. Go to the principal. Because I always believe the reaction from the person who hits you is going to be worse, right? So I always believe in not trying to be even. I always believe that there is a God who is going to deal with you. And whatever is spit up in the face, spit up in the ear, is going to fall back down in your face. And so I never ever, and I want to credit that to church. Although I did not grow up in a Christian home, there were just certain things that I just said I would never do. And I think also because of what I saw growing up in school, when people do things and you try to take matters into your own hands, I was never a fighter. And as I said, I was always very calm. And so it's never something that I ever thought about doing. And I'm so happy, thank God, that I never did.
Okay. I need to take some notes. Okay, so you're a single parent now. Can you talk a little bit about that? How was it from the time your daughter was born till now?
Okay, as I said earlier, it was crazy. It was overwhelming. But as I said, the community really was there for me. But when I went home, that was the hard part. That when I closed my eye, when I was away from everybody else, because yes, persons can come and hug you and say, you know, Tishi, I'm there with you. But when you go under the sheets, when you put this baby down, and she was a baby who woke up every 3 hours, every 3 hours. So there I was, going through what as a failed marriage. And I still had to face people, even though the persons weren't criticizing within me, because I had this level of pride that I didn't understand it was pride at that point. I had this level of pride. I am Utisha. A lot of young people looked up to me. I had persons that say, Tishi, I looked up to your marriage. So you can imagine at that point what I was going through, and I'm saying, God, why did you allow me to go through something like this? Not just that I'm going through hells with the marriage and to the divorce, but now I'm a single parent. I went away to have my daughter, And then coming back, my whole lifestyle changed because I now had to move back in with my mom, with my mom and my stepfather, my brothers. So it's like everything just transformed, and I just cried. I cried till I lost weight. I cried. I didn't know what else to do. And then that was another season where I began to open up some more to community. And I can say now that I am not just parenting her alone. I'm able to call on, if she does something, because she is a very energetic child, I can call on my brothers, I can call on males at the church, I can call on females at the church, I can call on my mom, and they are able to help me. So I don't have a major issue. He plays a role in her life, but in his mind, we just can't. And I have settled, I understand where he's coming from, and I just say, God, okay, well, I still believe. I would die believing that this marriage was from God, but I can't force him to see that. And because of what has transpired, I think I've let that slide. But my daughter now, it has been challenging being a single parent. But again, in everything that we do, community, association, know who you're associated with. Know who you can tell something without them going out. And you have to build this thing inside of you that even if somebody says something that you would have said to them in confidence, I don't care. Yeah. I know that I am walking in purpose. Right?
And definitely you got a blessing, because children are blessings,
yes.
so you got your blessing out of it.
Yes, she is a super blessing. Oh my goodness.
And also going back to what you said about a lot of young people looking up to you, and so this also shows them that, hey, you're human, you're just like anybody else, you know. Right. So it kind of ease it a little bit, you know, and make others more comfortable in that situation. Yes. So you mentioned a little bit about him being present in her life. Was it always like this? Were you always able to co-parent well?
Not at all, because I was angry. I was angry for years, and yes, I allowed him to see her, and he came, but it was not as, I think maybe I kind of shunned him as well, because I was just angry, and I'm human. And as I would have spoken about my situation, my experience, it is normal to be angry. And I just didn't care. If he came, I was willing to raise her on my own. That is how hard I was, and I didn't care. But at first, we just could not see eye to eye. But now, I think as she's getting older and she seems to want her father, I have no choice. And being able to speak to other persons who would have gone through, they would have said, Utisha, you cannot ever keep her from her father. This is her father. And as the Bible says, we have to train up our children the way they should go, so that even if there is a value that is not of God, that comes out from his side or from my side, once we train them properly, they will depart from that value system. And so I cover her in prayer. I try to relax now. I worried a lot, but now I just say, sometimes I have to call him and say, you know, you need to come and see her, you need to, and she's excited. So I try my best to just let it go.
And that's very mature of you, because you know how that could have ended badly.
Yes.
You know. I know as a Christian, it must not have been easy, especially for you. You grew up, well, at a young age, you committed your life. You waited. You were a virgin. Did you at any point in time, blame God and ask God, why did this happen to you and you are so faithful to him?
If I blamed God? I can recall one time I called a bunch of the church leaders together. And I said to them, look, I can't do this Christian thing no more. Because you mean to tell me that I had a choice. In my childhood, around me, when I say nobody were Christians, I remember we had parties every year. We had all of these things. So I was surrounded by what we call a bunch of heathens. And this little girl decided she wanted you, God. And she decided to stay faithful, and you threw all of this on her. And I said to them, I don't think I want this church thing, this Christian thing anymore, because it's just too hard for me to be living this life and still going through all of this. And I know so many of my cousins who seem to have life on top of a hill with, and so I felt like giving up. But again, when you see you have a bunch of people around you with great support, you don't have a choice but to submit and just stop for a while and ask yourself, why am I asking this question? Why am I going to allow somebody else to change my mindset from the person who I know have done so much for me? So much for me. And I did blame him, and I said, God, please, I can't do this anymore. It's just too much. And again, the support, and they took me to the Job situation. And that was a life-changing one. And I watched as Job remained faithful, and God blessed him even more. Yeah. Not just Job, I have seen other persons, after going through my experience, and they would have pointed me to real-life situations. So it's not just the Bible now. People right in our very communities who would have gone through even worse. And I was thinking, people actually go through worse than what I went through. And when you hear the testimonies of persons who would have overcome, I say, God, though you slay me, yet will I trust you.
Yeah,
so
that's good. I know it didn't happen overnight. It took
right.
a lot of time.
It did. It did.
That is definitely an inspirational story for young women out there. So what would you tell young women who may look at your situation and say it doesn't make sense for them to get a Christian man either? Because, a lot of times we say, oh, the good men are in church. But what if people may look on your situation and say, she found a man in church, he still ended up and did what he did, so why am I waiting and holding on for something that may not even come through,
Okay, there are many advice I can give to persons, but the first one I would give is, not your situation may not be like somebody else. You just have to. Many times we make sacrifices, many times we take risks, that's the word, we take risks. And when it comes to more serious things, we don't want to take a risk. And we just have to take a risk. Not just that, one of the things that I learned very late, and this is after my divorce, is the importance of digging into backgrounds. You need to dig into backgrounds. Is his value system similar to my value system? Is he going to tell you, leave the child alone, when really and truly you should be punishing the child?
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things that we need to look into. What is the history of parenting or the history of marriages in their family? Because there was a history of divorce on his path in my case. Okay, but we did not know at that point. The thing is, not that if there is a history of divorce, we're not going to still come together, but we will now be able to make different decisions, wiser choices, okay? Again, I will always go back to ensuring that your circle is a circle that would tell you, hey, this one not good enough for you. Not good enough, but this one is not right for you.
Yeah.
I know the history of this person. I know how this person treats women. I know how this person treats men. I know how this person's parents raised them. And yes, we can pray out a lot of things, but there are just some things that I'm not sure if we can change, okay? But at the end of the day, the main thing I want to say is just be associated with persons who can push you into the right direction. I mean, it's not all the time you will know who persons are, so it might be a little difficult, but always remember that we're humans, okay? We are going to make mistakes. Don't look at my situation and say, oh, that marriage ended in divorce, and look down on all Christian men, look down on all Christian women. There are still really, really great persons, and we need to take this thing out of our heads that I want a perfect man, I want a perfect woman. You're not going to find that. You're not going to find any like that. We have to be able to work with each other and we will make it. And we have to be mature enough to say, look, I am sorry I don't have this together, but I am willing to work with you. So these are some of the advices. When I write my book, we'll have some more advice.
Yes.
But for now, these are some of the advice I have for persons out there. And don't ever believe that you're not marriage material, you're not parent material. Seek help if you think that way, but you know you want to get married or you want to become a parent. Seek help. There's nothing wrong in saying I can't do it on my own.
Definitely. Feel like you're preaching to me too. I needed that. So the next and final question is kind of a two-part question. The first part is, what advice would you give to people who are currently going through a divorce and they just need a bit of encouragement? And then the next one is, what advice would you give to single parents who are struggling or they just need somebody to say, hey, you can make it through this? What advice would you give to those people?
So I don't know at what point you are now in your marriage breakdown, but I want to encourage you today. Don't blame yourself for what you're going through. Don't beat up on yourself. I believe there's always still hope. And if at the point that you think that this is it, what I want you to do is not blame, just don't beat up on yourself. Find a community, find someone that you can just spill on. There are just some times where you just want to just not necessarily hear from somebody, but you just want to just spill your guts. And nothing is wrong with that. But I always believe that there is room for reconciliation. And if that is the case, find somebody near you. I'm available. I can still talk to persons. I know communities who are willing to help marriages. But do not beat up on yourself, because a lot of us, we end up stressing and creating more situations, worse situations than what we're even going through. So there is still hope. Always know that there is still hope. For those of you who are single parents, I know it is not easy. I am living it, and sometimes you just want to give up, especially when you have a daughter or a son who is very energetic and you are doing so much. For instance, you're probably a business owner, you just have a lot on your plates and you just want to give up. Think about tomorrow. Think about the future of this child if only you invest your time and energy in that person. And for both situations, whether it's a marriage or a single parent, always know that God would have placed either a community or an individual here on earth that is able to help you. We can pray about it. And I'm now understanding what it means to pray without ceasing. And I just want to encourage you, please do not lose hope, because there's always hope at the end of the tunnel. Thank you.
Tishi, I want to thank you so much for being here. It was such an awesome interview and definitely encouraging. So I want to thank you so much for being here with us and sharing your story. I know you will impact women. And come back and let us know when the book is out.
Sure, I will.
And make sure I get my copy. Okay?
I am really blessed to be given this opportunity, because as I said, this wasn't for me. It was for the many women out there who are going through and who think that I should just give up. So I am really grateful for the opportunity.
Definitely. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Thank you for watching another episode of the Still That Girl series. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you feel led to, leave a comment below. Until next time, always remember, you are still that girl. Christians, just like anybody else, are human, and we go through trials and tribulations just like anybody else. Please feel free to like, share, and comment. And if you... sorry, Tishi, if I'm making you nervous.
That's fine. No, it's actually easy now.
Because I messed up so much. Do you have an inspirational story to share? Would you like to be featured on our next episode? If so, please contact us using the information displayed on the screen. If you'd prefer to tell your personal story anonymously, please complete the form by clicking the link provided in our bio.